Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. I'm your host, Juan Ayala, and this is Actors with Issues. Hello, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends. Welcome back to another episode of Actors with Issues, a podcast where we dive deep into the world of entertainment. I am your host, Juan Ayala, and each week we bring you intimate conversations with actors from the worlds of TV, film, and Broadway. From sharing their career journeys to discussing the challenges they have faced and conquered, we discuss it all. Today's guest is an actor who's made appearances on series like Fresh Off the Boat, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Disney's Mulan, and as the smiley-but-deadly Hong in the Cinemax to Max series Warrior, and you can stream all 3 seasons right now on Netflix. Please welcome to the show, Chen Tang. Chen, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
So, born in Japan, raised in China, and then eventually settling down in Memphis, were you one of those shy kids who sort of found the arts as their like safe space and broke out of their shell, or were you a hyper kid who's you had to channel all your energy into the arts?
I started out quite shy. I started out I think I was the best way I can describe it is I think I was an introvert that learned to be an extrovert.
Mm,
And so I consequently have no problem, talking to, through school and like learning to talk to people. But I think first off, I was raised by my grandmother,
mm,
and in China, she said I would just usually just lock myself in a little room, and draw and do art and these things. It was quite a shy kid.
mm.
Um, but after I was sort of forced into the situation when you have to like talk to people, go to school, go to a new country, learn a new language, I quite enjoyed it. I quite enjoy people, and but I will say, I think psychologically, what they say the difference between an introvert and an extrovert is what gives you energy. Is it give you energy by
Mm.
being around people, or does it give you energy by recharging by yourself? I think I'm definitely of the latter.
Yeah, same. I'm very much sort of. I feel like I was a hyper kid. I was very imaginative. Grew up as very much like
Yeah,
a kid of the Disney era.
yeah, yeah.
Grew up watching all the big musical movies, but uh, definitely now as an adult, especially, it's like I need my like alone time. Need that time to
I need
recharge.
like definitely alone and peace time,
Yeah.
and like I need my, meditation time. So I think, but usually people are surprised when they hear that because I'm quite, you know, I love talking to people. I'm quite social,
Mm.
but I was like, you know what? There's definitely quite a few times where I'm just, if I've been out a lot or I've been seeing a lot of people, I was like, I just like to go home and do like a little snail shell, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So when was it that acting sort of crossed your path? When did you discover that you really loved being in front of, maybe not in front of folks, like sort of performing, but when did all that happen for you?
Oh yeah, I definitely fell into this game, you know. I didn't really know what I wanted to do after I went to college. In fact, I didn't even think I was going to go to college. When I graduated high school, I thought I was going to be a soldier. Thought I was going to enlist in the Marines. But my mother persuaded me to just try it for a year, try uni for a year, and then I had to take a fine arts class, which ended up being acting. I always thought it was interesting, and then when I did it, and then the teacher was like, "Hey, you quite seem to like this. Why don't you audition for shows and stuff?" And then so I just fell into it, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then I think there was sometime when I was like 18 years old, I literally just opened my eyes one day and sat up in bed and I was like, well, if I like it, maybe I should try to do this like for a living and try to do this professionally. And since then, that's sort of the path that I've been on.
Mm. And did you move to one of like the major markets after college to sort of pursue it even more? Was it New York or LA that you headed to first?
Well, I started in Miami. I was
Oh,
actually I went to school at the University of Miami, and I transferred to Emerson College in Boston.
mm,
If you are a journalist, you probably know Emerson.
yeah.
It's communication school in Boston, and I was so close to New York City. So then, after I graduated, I moved to New York for the next 3 years.
Mm. And was theater on your radar at all? Since I know, like, lots of the acting training at the beginning is very theater based and drama based and whatnot, or was film and
Oh,
television more so on your
totally.
radar?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I did. I wanted to do it all. I mean, I had the good fortune in at Emerson to really start and do a lot of like student films, a lot of indie
Mm.
films that just happen. I mean, there's a lot of film students at
Yeah.
Emerson, and so I got to really work in front of the camera as well as, go on stage in Boston, which is also a big theater town.
Mm.
So I had a lot of wonderful experiences. Tried it all. I still love being on stage. I miss being on stage sometimes,
Yeah.
um, because I haven't done it in a little while. But yeah, I learned for the stage, but I also got like a lot of hands-on experience doing a lot of film.
And is
Yeah.
sort of along the way in those early years especially, is there a particular role or booking that you would say taught you something new about the industry that you didn't learn in school or didn't learn on set previously? Like anything that sort of stands out as like a learning moment for you?
Yeah, like every single one. I mean, I mean, like you can't really replicate um an audition process in school,
Right.
right? If you go to acting school, which I think many of us have, your training prepares you to for the craft. But
Yeah.
the process of going and get jobs and going in job interviews, which is what an audition is a completely different animal.
Mm.
Brings with it a completely different uh uh just response, like psychological response, right?
Yeah.
And some people, and it depends on the person, right? But for me, I remember um auditioning being quite hard, and to this day it's still, is still a different animal for
Yeah.
me. It's still a challenge, this big challenge. And um that's I think, like, so every single audition that I did, I remember thinking, I was like, okay, like you're literally getting on a roller coaster, a different roller coaster. And it felt like that. It felt like that.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting how like going from especially before COVID when auditions were in person much more often
Oh yeah.
back then
Yes.
compared to now. Uh, it really did sort of, as you said, feels like a every time you're going to an audition, it's like you're going on a different ride. Some of them you're in and out in 10 minutes. Others, it's the waiting game and you get into your head. It's like weird mind games. Like you're like seeing your competition in the waiting room and you
Yes,
start
yes.
to,
It can be like that.
yeah,
Yes, yes.
it's very,
It
very sort of
was
taxing. It can be.
it can be, yes. It can be. And I had to like sort of like try different things, and and then, like, of course, I think every actor's kind of bombed an audition. And it's just like, I just like the day is just the year is ruined, or can be, right? But yeah, you remember the nerves, you remember all of those sensations and everything. And I remember, it was a challenge. It was a really big challenge to deal with. And that is probably, I think, people who are not actors, even other people in this industry, but if they're not actors, they will never understand unless you were.
It's a whole different ball game, going from sort of facet to facet in the industry. It's just very, very different processes. Which is why I always admire sort of like the casting directors or the managers who used to be actors. They were in our shoes once upon a time and they sort of get the
Yeah,
game. So when they move
yeah.
to somewhere else, they're like, look, I get it. I've been in your shoes. Um, and they try and sort of work with you rather than, not to say that anyone works against you because, that's,
Right. Yes,
I don't want
yes.
to sort of
That
put
would be
that out there.
counterproductive. Well, no, that would also be counterproductive.
Right.
And if they're trying to like do something here that they need to fill a need to work against the people, to work against the supply would really
Right.
wouldn't work, you know?
Yeah. And fast forwarding to now, so when you first joined the cast of Warrior, it was in season two. So
Yes.
Were you a fan of the show prior to that? I know they got renewed pretty quickly, and if I remember correctly, they kind of dived into production pretty quickly after the first.
they did, yeah. So they got it renewed as pretty much as soon as they released it,
Mm,
right? And I hadn't joined the show at that time. In fact, I hadn't seen it at all. I just sort of heard about it. I think like 2 years before I joined the cast, I think every actor that fit the role kind of auditioned for Awesome. So I remember like some of the sides, right?
mm,
And when I joined it, but when I joined it, I hadn't seen the show. I mean, like I couldn't have been a fan because I hadn't seen the show yet.
right.
So when I joined it, HBO had sent us just the entire first season. So I remember watching it, and I was like, I'll take it slow, you know, and then like next thing I know, I'm up till like 4 a.m. And I think I binged it in one day.
Mm,
I mean, it was quite addictive.
yeah.
So I was like, yeah, okay, that's a pretty good show.
So I describe Hong in our intro as smiley yet deadly, because he has such great energy and is just a wonderful addition to the show. Definitely bringing like just a new level of energy. But obviously, as we've
Thank you.
seen, he is a badass in battle for sure. But sort of having that duality, was that challenging for you, or was that something that you were like really just excited to tackle of having these like two sides of him?
No, it was definitely the exact opposite. It actually makes things easier.
Mm,
I mean, it's like you're an actor, right? It would make it easier to play off of things all the time,
yeah.
right? So what ended up happening for me is, I found a lot of duality in Hong, like just in everything,
Mm,
right? He's got sadness and happiness, right? And you can always play off of your own internal life and
right.
your own things. So it was really, really fascinating to look through that lens. Um, yes, it was like, and plus it's just fun. What would it be like to, zig when everybody else is zagging?
Mm,
So you always have something to play.
yeah.
You always have like a cool choice or something you could make.
And we have a ton of fan submitted questions, so we're going to move on to our segment called Dear Chen. So
Oh,
lots of questions about
okay.
season three. So folks who are listening, if you
Yes.
have not finished season three, stop, pause now, go finish, and then come back. Um,
Okay.
so these Reddit names always crack me up. So fair warning. I I set three alarms. Asks, what do you think Hong was feeling in the final fight of the Hop Wei versus Assam? Was there a part of him that wanted to fight on Assam's side?
There was definitely a part that was just torn. Just a little background about that fight.
Mm,
That fight we worked for like 2 weeks straight on, but just the three actors of us,
yeah.
because it started off very different. Okay. The fight, number one, was supposed to be twice the length,
Wow.
right? And we were supposed to like, you know, Assam wasn't supposed to be disarmed so quickly, and then like we would have weapon fight, and then we take this final weapon, and then we go into this sort of like circling, like two people circling one guy fight,
Mhm.
and hand to hand, and then we almost get him, and he prevails, right? But it was supposed to be twice the length. We ended up, as we often did on Warrior. Look, we just run out of time.
Mhm.
We're always under the gun with pressure. But I will say this, uh, you know, Brett Chan gives us a wonderful like sketch of the fight to begin with, and then it was up to us as the actors to sort of fill it. And we were like had so many crazy ideas because we were
Mhm.
thinking, well, look, this is like the last, this is a huge character moment,
Yeah.
right, for all of us. So when I was, each of us, like, we constantly talked about, like, hey, what do we want to do here? Where are we coming from here? What are we, what's the relationship here? We would literally talk about it like that.
Yeah.
and while practicing it and then trying new things and then making sure that was approved by the producers and whatnot, right? And then the producers would come and give us their notes and everything. So long story short, to answer your question, I when that fight was going on, I had made this decision that I didn't believe that Hong truly had his heart in it.
Mm,
He didn't have his truly have his heart in it, whereas Young Jun did. But in that fight, I had made that decision that it was Jason Tobin and I talked about this. We were like, it was this fight we had realized how different Hong and Young Jun were from Assam.
mm.
We were gangsters, we were killers. He wasn't. We were, it's like that. What was it? That Bane quote is like, you merely adopted the darkness. We were born from it,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? I mean, like we literally were raised in this. This is our world. This
yeah,
is who we are. And as you had noticed, like we were trying to really attack and we were really trying to like, we were he kind of lets up on it, but we didn't. Like I think for Hong was just doing it out of duty more so than Young Jun was out of personal pain.
yeah,
So, but we were gonna kill him, you know, because we were killers and he wasn't, and that's the big difference.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's such a. I mean, every character is just has so much to do and to play off of. Like I loved that about the show is that
yeah,
no one felt
yeah,
like an
yeah.
afterthought or a secondary character. Like
Mhm.
everyone got their moment to shine. Um,
Yes,
and what I appreciate
yeah,
about the show, especially sort of from an actor's perspective, is that like there might be an episode where your character is not really in it much, but then the next one is like your episode to shine. And I love that they did
yeah,
that.
yeah.
You know,
Yes,
it's not like
yes,
everyone gets
yes.
a. It's not like everyone gets like crumbs every episode. It's like nope, you're gonna get like a full plate to do today.
Right, right. You're gonna have a lot to do, or like this is kind of a large like turning point for your journey, your
Yeah,
character. They did a wonderful job, and like, I can't tell you how difficult it is to have like such a large cast. It
yeah,
was so beautiful to have it, but like that we almost ran out of we always run out of like story real estate every season because it's like just 10 episodes, it's 1 hour episodes each,
yeah.
but there's 14 main cast members,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. With
Something's
each
gotta
season, I'm
like
like,
be
this could have
stretched
gone
thin.
on for this could have been 13. Warrior
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
could have
yeah,
been that.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. We felt the same way all the time.
You're like,
Yeah.
guys, more episodes this season? No? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
OMG, it's Joe MG. Again, these names. You
Great
had,
name.
right,
Yeah.
said you had such great chemistry with the main duo. Who are your favorite actors to work with on set?
Oh, definitely. I love working with those two. I really loved working with those two. Um, but actually, I would say the the actor that I love to watch the most, to watch and see, because I respect him so much as an actor, is definitely Hoon Lee.
Mm,
Yeah, he's a wonderful actor,
yeah,
and I definitely look up to him, and I always like to see like his process.
yeah. When we spoke during the junket, when I was chatting with Hoon, he was saying that those characters who are so morally gray, who don't fall into the black or white category of in terms of like what side they're on, which is, I mean, so many
Yes.
people on the show are gray. But he said that's where actors
Hmm.
have the most fun because it's not like the
That's
self-righteous,
right.
it's not that thing. It's like you have all this room to explore and all the things that are revealed about him throughout the show have been so cool. Like him having a daughter and things like
Yes,
that and
that's right.
just so
It was
good.
that's that those really are the most fun to play because you have, again, it's like a larger area to explore.
Yeah.
You can go any which way, and that would affect, or something would affect your journey as well. You know,
Yeah.
it was a like they that's one of the beautiful things about being an actor is to just sort of explore different ways of viewing the world and things that would affect you in different ways that it wouldn't affect other people and try to express that. So,
And we have several folks who submitted questions regarding stunts, fighting, and all of that. So Pat9714 asks, "What is your personal background with martial arts?" And then legitimate Sugar 6487. Again, these long names. What styles did you train for in the role, and what kind of kung fu does Hong use?
good question. I never had that question before, actually. Um, so for the first question, I had about 6+ years of kung fu, wushu, and then a smattering of um, Krav Maga and Muay Thai. And then, but never until really Warrior had I done really actually done a lot of stunts.
Mm.
So this is my first real stunts heavy project. Hong, on the terms of Hong, when we were developing it, we took quite a long time to develop the fighting style that each, because Brett really wants to have each silhouette to be different
Mm.
so that you can always tell which character it is based on how they move. And it's very, very important. It changes the way you think about things as an actor. So we experimented with it ended up being like sort of this hybrid of different styles, but particularly for his kicks, we actually, believe it or not, we trained a lot in the style of savate, which is French kickboxing.
Oh,
Yes, because it's quite a in savate the kick is it comes from a rounded the power comes from round
mm,
like a circle
mm,
because it usually often in a taekwondo kick you just like load up, fire,
yeah.
right? And from a whole body, load up and fire. But Savat, it's very, very interesting. It was so very strange to try because I never tried it before. Um, the power comes from loading up into a round plane, like a circle.
Mm.
And I was like, why are we doing this? And he was like, and then Brett was like, well, number one, it's interesting, okay, like because also it's everything was about circles with Hong
Mm.
because of that chain. Because they didn't decide what the weapon was going to be until about a month or two before it got there.
Mm.
Because they needed to decide what type of weapon does Hong have. This is a unique weapon. So obviously, He trained a lot in the. I trained a lot in the whip chain and
Yeah.
the like a short chain. But in my opinion, I think Hong fights in sort of an unorthodox, dirty fighting style. Dirty fighting style. Everything's all about circles. Everything's about keeping distance. Everything's about like Hong is definitely the guy that would he would totally like run away and then stab you in the back, or like hit you with a chair. Things like that. Anything to win. Anything to win.
Mm.
So I would actually call it like a type of self-taught but effective, unorthodox style.
Mm.
It just so happened that Tong was a highly instinctual fighter. That was the one thing that Brett and I had decided on. We were like, he may not be a technically super like most technical fighter, but he's highly instinctual fighter,
Yeah.
which is a very, very cool thing to
Yeah.
yeah.
He's definitely got sort of like the spidey sense in terms of like being aware of his
Yes,
surroundings. I feel
yes,
like you
yes.
rarely ever see him sort of like miss something or falter or something.
That's the crazy thing. Yeah, is because it's almost like an animal, right?
Yeah.
Like when you don't think so much, you don't let the intellect get in the way. You see it all. You
Yeah.
really have to see it all. Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Speechasha, I guess. I don't know. Asks or says, having a tough, cool LGBTQ character in the show who is not a cliche is really meaningful for so many people. How does he approach his
Thank you.
character's sexuality, and what is it like, or was it something he knew when he auditioned or got the role?
Yes, it was always a part of the character when
Mm,
I auditioned for it. And it was also, I think, the greatest strength and the greatest pillar that I had as an actor to
mm,
create the role. Because I first off, thank you very much because I one of the things that we wanted to do with Hong was to never put a microscope on his sexuality.
mm.
And what that means is it just so happens that he likes men,
Right,
but that's not all he is,
right.
nor is it. I think it's almost like not an after effect, but it would almost just be just it's like me saying I have a white shirt on.
Right.
This it's just a fact. So the reason I say it was such a pillar of the creation process was that was the first thing that opened up this sense of duality
Mm,
that I felt like that gave me so much as Hong. Um, this is he's a gay hatchet man. He's a gay hit man. Um, which is and then I looked at the world that this man came from, Qing Dynasty, China. Um, and top of that, which is already a very stereotypically masculine, sort of dominated uh, uh, sphere, right?
mm.
And then you are also in a gang,
Right.
right? You're in the mafia, so and you're a soldier, for the mafia. So to do all that, I was like, wow, okay. Well, you're already inhabiting this world that's stereotypically very masculine, but deep down, um, there's other things around it. Like, what would that play off of? How could those two things play off of
Mm.
each other? Then that's where I found humor. That's where I found everything. I found everything based on um, Hong's sexual identity.
Mm. I
Yeah.
love how like early on, like, Assam is just like, okay, you're into guys, cool, whatever. Like he just sort of
Yep.
like brushes it off, and then when I love when Young Jun like sticks up for him when he's getting like teased by the
Me
other
too.
guys. It just adds
Me
such
too.
a cool level, an extra level of like brotherhood and sort of
Yes.
loyalty to each other. It's like, hey, that's our brother. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Make no mistake, though, it's which is really interesting because we were thinking about that. Hong's sexuality is less important than the results of him being a very good at, you know, very useful and good fighter,
mm,
right? So, that's what it sort of like starts it off. And it's interesting that we have went that way, which I really like because I really don't like being preached to. And
right,
I don't think people like being preached
yeah,
to, where they're like, oh, okay, this is like white knight kind of thing, because we don't need that. All
mm,
right. Like the no communities really need that. People know who they are. So I think it's just we had come from a place of just respect, but also respect in like you're actually just a useful human being. Does
yeah,
that make sense?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And through it all, you become friends,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And last fan question. Baron's dad says, with your family's involvement with St. Jude's, was there any pressure growing up to pursue a path in science, or have they always been supportive of your life in the arts?
I got very lucky. I don't have very traditional Chinese parents. My parents actually did the exact opposite. My mother sat me down at the kitchen table when I was going off to college. She said, "Look, I am a doctor. Okay, I'm trained as a doctor. Went through medical school, did all these things. You don't have what it takes. You just shouldn't do this because you would just suck at it." I mean, literally, that's what she said. She was like, "I'll do anything else, okay?" And so when I became an actor, she was actually, obviously, parents are worried. I think many
Right.
parents. I don't think Asian parents in general, but many parents are like worried because they don't understand this game and this industry, and obviously it's a very inherently unstable industry.
Yeah.
So she was just worried about like, hey, are you going to be able to pay your bills? Are you going to be okay? All of these things. But she did. They had always supported my dreams because they said, hey, look, if you have a dream, you should go after it.
Yeah.
You really should, because that's what they did, and
Yeah.
that's why we ended up being in the States.
Mm.
So I got very lucky with that.
It reminds me when I was growing up, my mom would always be like, my mom would say, like, you're smart, but you're lazy because I hated doing homework. That was
Oh
always
yeah,
that
yeah,
kid.
me too.
I'm like, I already learned this. Why do I have to do homework for? But it's like, you do well on your tests, but your homework is still like 30% of your grade. So
Oh
you
yeah,
could
yeah,
ace
yeah,
your
yeah.
tests, but you're not going to ace the class. So that was always my trouble. So like, mind you, acting homework, I'm like, I will be on my feet rehearsing running lines for hours. So when it came to acting
Mm,
homework and the stuff I wanted to do, and there was more to learn from,
yes.
I was always down to do. But gosh, I hated like math and science are so not my thing.
Really? Oh yeah, yes. I think it's you can tell where your interests lie based on
Yeah,
like how much you want to do things,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's time for one of our newer games called Resume Breakdown, where we go through your IMDb, highlight some of your credits, and you just quickly tell us about some of those early experiences. Your
Oh my
first
God.
TV credit, which I didn't even realize this was you. I'm a huge fan of 30 Rock.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And when I saw that you were here, and I was like, "Who's Jake Who on 30 Rock?" And then I looked, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's from that like show within the show, which they do so often."
Yes,
But
yes.
you played Jake Who, a fictional reporter who can't smell. I just thought that you
Detective,
let
detective,
detective.
detective.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
You let me see the documents. Ridiculous. But what do you remember from that working on 30 Rock, and such an iconic show of like the early 2000s when it comes to like TV sitcom or TV comedy? So what was that whole experience like?
Oh, that was funny. Actually, this that job was my very first audition in New York City.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, I got very, very lucky,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, oh yeah, this is easy then. It was not. Um, but I remember getting to set, and I remember, okay, so when I was in New York, it's just I graduated. It's very poor at the time, very, very poor. And dude, 30 Rock at NBC had the very best craft services and food catering that you could ever imagine. I think they had lobster and steak that day.
Wild.
Lobster and steak that day that was being prepared,
Yeah.
like when you ordered it. So of course my ass brought like Tupperware. I was the guy that brought a lot. I
Always.
took it all. I
That's
took
so
it all. I
funny.
don't care, man. I think the craft services table was like 10 meters long. Um, so I remember great craft services. I remember Tina Fey, like she's walking by and she's had a whole bunch of people like following her because she's also a producer and writer on the show.
Right. Yeah.
And so she's busy. But I was like getting nuts. I think I was getting like walnuts for later at the craft services table. And she stopped by. She's like, oh, she looks at me and she's like, oh, go ahead. Everybody else go ahead. And then she was like, hi, how are you doing? I hope you're doing all right. And I was like, oh, you know what? She was like, yeah, yeah. I'm like, I was like, hi, I'm Chen. She's like, hi, I'm Tina. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I know who you are. Um, but she actually like stopped and took the time to talk to like just a little guest star.
Yeah.
I remember that. It always stuck out with me, and I tried to emulate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was
That's sick.
it was a fun gig.
Yeah, those types of experiences, like, especially like you said, when sort of the star of the show takes a moment to say hello and whatnot, always sticks with me. I
Mhm.
remember when I worked, it was my very first day on a show I did called Blind Spot. Um,
Oh, great! Yeah, great show. Yeah.
yeah, I ended up doing 4 episodes of the show, but on that very first one, I remember Sullivan Stapleton, when I was getting mic'd up, he came over and he was like, "Hey, you're joining us today, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am. I'm playing Agent Woods." And he was like, and he shook my hand. He said, "Welcome to the team." I was like, "This is so cool." I was like, "Welcome."
So cool.
So it just
Yeah,
stood out, and I'm like, "Oh my God, if I'm ever like, a regular or anything, if I'm in a sort of a higher position, I want to emulate that, like you said, just
that's right.
welcoming
That's
people and
right.
making sure they feel welcome. Because Lord knows we were probably terrified or nervous, riddled with imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
But when someone takes that second and just says like, "Hey,
yeah.
welcome, thanks for being here," it makes a world of difference.
I believe it's our sacred duty to send the elevator down.
Mm, love that.
And it's our sacred duty to also be kind and respect other artists and other people. So
Mm,
yeah, there was just like it was very cool. Yeah, it was
mm,
really, really, really cool. And I remember like being blessed. That was my first experience in New York.
yeah,
My first TV gig, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And your next credit that we're gonna highlight: male model Eddie in Fresh Off the Boat. Pretty iconic show. So what was that like?
The easiest gig you ever think of, because it was just like chilling, you know. And that set is fun. That set is fun. Fresh Off was very, very fun. We're like dicking around half the time because it's a comedy and it has that energy
Yeah.
and it helps, right? And so I remember um I remember all of us getting our abs like oiled. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
we were like, you know, we were like, so you have to like this whole scene was supposed to be like, you know, with their visual of what, you know, he would look like
yeah.
later on in high school. And so everybody was like trying to do like push-ups and stuff
Right.
because some of us were in better shape than others, but we were like, okay, yes, okay, we're gonna like, keep doing this. But it was super fun. It was super fun. It was also I think we were in and out of that day in like an hour, like maybe
Oh,
two
those are the
hours. Yeah,
best. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It was just like done. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It was fun.
And another iconic show on your resume, Grey's Anatomy. You played Dave. So what was that
Ooh,
experience like?
yes, yeah. That was really, really interesting because we had the sort of self-contained episode because usually, you know, you do it like a guest star on a TV show and you're kind of there for maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days, something like that. It was a big guest star, maybe a week or something.
Mm,
We were locked in there for like 2.5 weeks because it was the in the story, it was all on an airplane.
mm,
So they built the whole cockpit and the airplane and everything because, like, you know, they're going down.
yeah.
And so, you know, obviously on an airplane, all the extras, like, well, you know, everybody, it's not like you can leave the airplane.
Right.
So we were all stuck together. The whole cast was stuck together for like 2.5 weeks. And that I just remember that being so, I felt like being on a little play
Yeah. Yeah.
because you know they would like take out sections of the airplane to bring them the camera, you know, and then like have people like you know, like it's shaking and
Yeah.
they would actually like be outside with like little poles and shake they're shaking the airplane. Yes, that was that. I hate to keep saying the word fun because, but it was just some super enjoyable experience because you know we got to you know, you just rehearse together, and it didn't actually feel like being on a TV show.
Mhm.
It felt because we were all on one same stage the entire time. It
Yeah.
just felt like we were all like in theater.
And then Agent Kim on Agents of Shield. So working
Yeah,
on a Marvel show. What was that like?
yeah, that was huge. Like I thought that was the biggest set I would ever get to at the time. Because and then you know we did like Mulan and then we did Warrior, which was
Right.
enormous, you know, because you can walk through the sets. But that's you know I wasn't on there for very long, but
Mhm.
those people were. I felt like man, those people are like they're really like a family because they had been doing it so long for them
Yeah.
by then, and uh, um it was cool to just see how on it everybody was
Yeah.
because they all have a shorthand now. I mean, like everybody, even the camera, everything, they're all just like it felt like later on when I experienced that on Warrior, I was like, oh well, that's I see how that works. You know,
Yeah.
where you had 3 seasons, after 3 seasons, you and the camera people have you and the camera department, the DP, we have shorthands. You
Mhm.
know, we just kind of know
Yeah.
and they'll catch you
Yeah.
just right. It's a real cool thing that happens. Now imagine if it was like 6 seasons, 7 seasons. Then it's
Right.
really you're like, we know each other too well now.
Right.
So to see that, it's a little hard to explain, but to see it um, in action, the way that the comfort of being with each other, but also having to do, you know, do work in real time. It's like anybody that's been in an office for 7 years with somebody, but they
Yeah.
have to do stuff. It was that's the feeling that I had on it.
Yeah. There have been so many folks who've talked about that sort of like once you're a couple seasons in and you're just sort of like this well-oiled machine. That's what it felt
Yeah,
like when I went
yeah.
into Blind Spot. My first episode was season three, and then by the time was in season five, I was like, oh, these guys got it. They've been doing this for 100
Oh yeah,
episodes. They
yeah,
know what they're doing.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can feel it. It's difficult to explain until you're in that
Yeah.
presence, but it's almost like even everything, makeup, everything. It's just like you come
Right.
to
Yeah.
work and then it just kind of starts to flow,
Yeah.
and
It
then you
almost
do your
feels like you're
thing.
the new kid at school, and you're like, oh, these people have known each other forever, and I'm
Exactly,
here, new
exactly,
environment.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. That's how he feels. Yes.
And a last one. So, as in Mulan, as Yao, and you filmed that in New Zealand, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what
Yes.
was that
Yes.
like?
Well, one of the great experiences of my life, great memories of my life. Yes. Dude, like you never been on a big set until you've been on a Disney set.
Disney
Like
movie,
that,
especially. Yeah.
yeah, like I was like, we were like mind boggled because Disney, if they built a set, they built a fort, they literally build the fort.
Yeah.
Like the thing was 4 stories high.
Mm,
You could run up top of it. They built it out of shipping containers
wow.
and they just covered it with like stucco and shit, right? And I remember thinking they were like, they need an army. They cast an army. They literally casted. They had castings for extras,
Wild. Yeah.
and they trained them in a 3 week, um,
Wow.
kind of like camp.
Boot camp. Yeah.
So, well, yeah, to be in an army, they had to march and do all.
Mm,
They gave them like different divisions. I mean, that was so it
yeah.
was they had like I think they had yes, I'm pretty sure this is what the casting director told me. She was like, I have never been in a production where the animals had a call sheet.
That's so funny.
Like they had like chicken one, chicken two, chicken three, chicken
Oh,
four, horse one to like 20.
yeah. Oh,
And
that's so
like
funny.
yeah, because they're living, breathing beings. They need to,
Yeah.
they need to rest and things. They need to be accounted for. Like the animals had a call sheet. It was wild. But what was the big highlight for me on it was being able to see New Zealand
Yeah.
because it really does look like, and I can see why they wanted to place it there because, and we had they shot parts of it in China as well, especially the big drone shots of the Gobi Desert.
Mm.
But with New Zealand, it really did feel like an alien world, and we were like sort of like sequestered out there, and just sort of in this like literally felt like Lord of the Rings.
Mm.
So I mean, I can't speak well enough of my experience on Mulan, but I was very very fortunate to actually be a part of that, be a part of something like that. That
Mm.
that I was yeah, it would forever be one of the great memories of my life.
And for our last segment, it's a rapid fire round called "It's Time for Life's Big Questions." So first, if you could have any superpower, which would you choose?
Like time control, man.
Oh, yep, Doctor
Yeah,
Strange.
yeah, yeah.
What is your favorite show to binge watch?
Stargate SG-1. I'm a
Self-tape
huge
audition
sci-fi
or in
nerd.
person?
Self-tape.
What show would you love to be a guest star on?
Star Trek.
Good choice. After a long week of filming, what do you do to unwind and recover?
Oh man, I always go and like find really good restaurants to eat at. Yeah, yes, yes. But I'd like to get a good massage too,
Mm,
because especially with Warrior, it was
yeah,
physically taxing.
yeah.
Yeah.
What is the most spontaneous thing you've ever done?
Uh, like skinny dip in the ocean in Thailand.
It's a pretty common answer. People are like, "Oh, skinny dipping."
Oh well, I'm just a common basic bitch, so I'm sorry.
What is your go-to karaoke song?
Um, uh, Any Way You Want It by Journey.
Oh, good choice. What is
Mm.
the last book you read?
Bhagavad Gita.
What special skill on your resume would people be most surprised to learn about?
I am a very, very highly trained, like I would say this without any kind of, arrogance. I'm a fucking good bartender. I'm a big,
Oh,
like mixology and cocktail. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it was very, very, very well trained by some of the people that started this whole um, mixology
yeah,
thing, and yeah, make you any drink you want.
yeah. I love making cocktails. I bartended a ton in college, so I'm very much that, but
Hmm.
nowhere near where you are probably. I can't do bar tricks and things like that, but I'll make a
Oh
good
yeah, you like
martini.
spin the bottle. Yeah, yeah,
Nah,
yeah.
I can't do all
You know what? That's all we
that.
need. That's all we need is a good martini. That's
Right.
all we need.
And last question, in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
Wow, that's a very intense question. Enjoy what you do. Do that the very best. Yeah.
Awesome. Chen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We're almost at an hour, which I did not even realize we've been talking this long. But thank you again for just chatting about your career, everything you've learned over the years, and talking to us about all the issues. And congrats on Warrior. I really
Thank you
hope
so
that
much.
another season comes you guys' way on Netflix. I know that the battle's still
Shit, we'll
going
take
up.
a movie, man. We'll take
Right.
a movie. Just like finish up that.
Yeah.
There's a little
There's a
like
pocket.
epilogue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a pocket that
Yeah.
just needs to be filled. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again,
Thank
man.
you so
Really
much,
appreciate
Juan.
it.
Dude, it was really great to meet you, and really, like when we did the junket. But yeah, this is a really fun interview.
Thank you.
So I can't wait to see it, and really thank you for your time, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to Actors with Issues on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and visit our YouTube channel for full video interviews. Actors with Issues is executive produced and hosted by Juan Ayala. See you next time.